just a short session off me then regarding the problem with writing, and it was really interesting to go to breakout rooms earlier and just have a chat with other heads of English about that as well. And this is focusing on why do our learners lose marks in the writing sections, and kind of a few ideas that we've taken in Chepstow to address these issues. So the first task that I had for today was to think about the issues of Key Stage 4 writing. However, I think, well, I was late to the session, and I having a look at the chat commentary, I can see that there were a few comments there about some of the issues. So I'm not sure if we've already done that task today. But I know that we've certainly had a chat in our breakout rooms. And what we discussed in our breakout room was stamina. Writing stamina was an issue. Certainly spelling, punctuation and grammar, and how we can address that. But for me, it's also the lack of engaging content and lazy sentence construction. It's almost like these pupils see this exam as something they just have to do. They got 2 hours, they've got to finish it, and they're just going to get through it. Whereas actually they need to stop and think about taking the time to do this really well. And on the screen, you can see I've been blatantly honest. Those are the averages from our year 11 mocks that they sat in December. You're looking at around half marks, if not less, for each writing section. Now, you know, we need them to be getting more than half marks. So therefore, now is the time to be actioning this problem. I also found for the first year, a lot of incomplete questions, especially on Unit 3. When they got to B2, they might have written a paragraph and then obviously ran out of time. So we need to really work on that writing stamina. So this session is just going to go through a few ideas, and the first one being the engaging content. So how often do we hear the words, I don't know what to write? I don't know what to write. Typically boys, sometimes they might sit there and just be 5 minutes into a writing task, say, and you say, come on now, why aren't you writing? Oh, I don't know what to write. So I'm sure that's not just me. And another problem that I've had this year was reading something like I've written on the screen there. It was on a cold day in October when my friends and I were enthusiastically getting ready to face our local rivals in the cup game. If I read another story or descriptive piece about a football game, I will go nuts. And I've told the class that. So how do we get the pupils away from writing about these football games? And in fairness, that's what we're passionate about. But it's about moving from just the boring narrative to something more descriptive. So we've had a little think within a department, and we've purchased this book, 712 More Things to Write About, and you may use it yourselves. So we've spoken already today about free writes, and for me, I used to mostly do these in Key Stage 3. So I use this book widely with Key Stage 3, sometimes for cover lessons. Sometimes if we've been working so hard on our scheme of learning, we just need a break, we'll bring out this book for a free write activity. And then I thought to myself, well, hang on now, if we've got an issue at Key Stage 4 where the pupils don't know what to write, well, we need to really get them thinking and just engage in their imagination. Now, I know that many schools do free write activities, and they have writing lessons on a Friday, say, but I wanted this to be something where we remove the structure and remove the pressures around writing and the constructs and the success criteria and everything we build up for our pupils to write. I just wanted them to receive low threat, high challenge tasks that they could just do, just to think freely, just to get that pen and the hand moving so that they're used to considering their ideas. So you can see on the screen there, I've given a few ideas of the tasks out of that book. I feel most alive when I'm so-and-so. Your cat has a Twitter account. What are its first 3 tweets? And you've got to be quite selective in this book, I must say, because it is aimed at adults. There are some more adult content in there. However, you know, we can make those decisions ourselves. So here I can just share with you some year 10 free writes that we completed last week. And the prompt was write about something you find offensive. So we had a quick discussion, what do you find offensive? And they went really, really high. Like, I find it offensive that they just done a lesson in Welsh about how Wales has to pay to change all of its name places back to Welsh when actually it was the English that colonised Wales. And I said, okay, so you find that offensive. Great. And I did have 2 pupils write about that. And I said, well, let's, we don't need to go too high. We can just simply think about something light-hearted. So for me, I find coriander offensive. Hate this stuff, so I'm going to write about coriander. So you can see that this pupil wrote about parsnips. Again, 5 minutes, but they're writing. This pupil wrote about something which was totally beyond me, the character of Venom in Spider-Man 2, but this pupil found it offensive. And you can see just that one prompt gave them something that they can access. No structure, no success criteria. I don't need you to do this, that, or the other. I just want you to write. And this pupil wrote about people making presumptions about you. So I like that as well. So I just wanted to share those 3 examples with you and what that looked like with my year 10 class. So that was one activity that we've started using out Key Stage 4 just to get our pupils writing and engage in their imagination. We've also purchased this book, The Writing Game. You may have come across it. And this links to a nice piece of research by William and Thompson that teachers should activate pupils as learning resources for each other. So for this activity, they are given a statement, which you might find on our Unit 3 paper. Pupils should stay in school until the age of 18, write a speech about this, and so on. And for this activity, which I chose from page 50, is called Evaluates. They work in pairs. One pupil writes a sentence agreeing, the other writes a sentence disagreeing, and then they have to discuss which line of argument they find most convincing. And then once they've discussed that, they then write a joint evaluative paragraph. So, it's similar to the constructs of the writing revolution that Claire mentioned earlier. However, it's taken away the formalities of writing and just getting them engaged. And I find that book quite useful. It's a John Catt publication, and like you can see, they're all evidence-informed activities as well. A lot of them are quite active, getting them up and around the room, but then they're easy enough just to open that book on a morning and think, right, what are we going to do today with regards to improving some writing? Quick 10-minute activity. There you go. We've also used topical talk. I know that Leanne's a big fan of this and we've spoken about it in meetings previously, but I can't rave about topical talk enough. So it's based on the, I can't remember which newspaper it is now. Is it not The Guardian? The Economist.
The Economist.
Yes, there you are. I knew it was on my slide in 2 slides' time. So The Economist, they produce this topical talk, and I think they upload them weekly. And you can just go on there. You need to log in and sign in, but then you just get prompts, and they give you the resources, and it's that writing through discussion. So we used this one of year 11. Is there a place for royals in the modern world? And we had a whole PowerPoint then looking at the role of the royals, such as this one on the screen, and then they wrote that exposition as well. So whilst its purpose is mainly for talking and forming discussions, you can then change that into an exposition piece or any Unit 3 text after as well. So this has been invaluable for use with Key Stage 4. And you can see there just a screenshot of a website. You've got the resources at the top, and I think, like I said, they're updated weekly and you can just select through. I think this was a most recent one, eco-anxiety. So they're really topical and really interesting as well. So highly recommend topical talk. My next issue then was modelling. Now, last year we had the opportunity to meet with other schools and share good practice. And one of the sessions that we looked at was on modelling, and I kept saying, when I model, I just use my visualizer. And I was very much stuck in that rut of modelling being me giving the pupils a task, me also writing that task at the same time as the pupils with my visualizer, and that was me modelling, and that was it. And I think it was Lucy Hacker, and I know Jenna was on the call as well. And they were talking about all these different things that they do for modelling. So I was inspired to then change things. I'll show you how shortly. So the research then from Troyer simply says that learners are more likely to follow writing skill instruction delivered by teachers whom they perceive to be expert writers themselves. So I thought that was quite interesting in that our pupils are expecting us to be these expert writers. And obviously, why not? We're the ones expecting them to produce excellent pieces of work. Therefore, we need to demonstrate that to them as well. So a few questions there. What does excellence look like for our learners in our writing modelling? What are our learners exposed to in order to shape their creativity? And Claire mentioned earlier the WJEC resources, and you've got exemplar answers on there as well. And how do pupils engage with our models? And again, that was something I looked at last year, was what are pupils doing in lesson time? So you might give them a piece of modelled writing, but how do we know they're engaging? And that ties into our work that we're doing as a school with participation ratio. So I wanted to make sure that we addressed that too. So I came up with, I can change the slide, there we go. Now I saw this on Twitter in a similar thing on Twitter, and obviously if you use Twitter you know just how invaluable that is as a resource, but unfortunately I can't remember who I saw it off. So I've got no one to credit because I didn't make a note, I'm afraid. However, this is now rolled out from September. We use this across all of Key Stage 3, 4 and 5 for any writing or reading activity, and you can see that this links to the example from Topical Talk that I mentioned earlier. You just simply give them the success criteria, and then you give them 3 sections to highlight in your excellence looks like section. You've got an area at the top. How would you improve this based on the success criteria? So the pupils get the opportunity to do that task prior to reading the excellence looks like. Now, because of our work that we're doing as a school regarding the participation ratio, I wanted this to be engaging with the pupils. So as we read, they highlight what went well, any areas for development, any ideas they're going to magpie. You might want them to highlight and focus on a specific area of the success criteria. But this has undoubtedly really improved our pupils' writing, because they are seeing that model of excellence before we expect them to do the same piece themselves. Now, you might think it's onerous having to do a piece of excellence looks like before you teach it, and you know what, we're busy people, but you've got this then from next time you teach it, haven't you? So it is invaluable in that sense. And there's an example there of a different task. It's essential that more people are more active more often, and you can see what that looks like then in the pupils' books. There's a section for pupil notes where they can make any notes based on what they've found. This pupil didn't, but alas. So that's how we're thinking about modelling excellence to our Key Stage 4 learners. And then my next problem is with deforest. And like I put on the screen, there's no evidence-based research here, because I'm not just sure if this is a me problem or not. And you can see I've cleverly modelled a few questions based on deforest for you. So what do you think about deforest? Does deforest truly challenge our learners? Do you get annoyed with your pupils using deforest in their writing? Isn't it absurd? So, is deforest too limiting? And if so, what is it that we can offer them in addition to deforest? Whilst it offers the base of the persuasive techniques, what else is there to think about with regards to their sentence structure and control? And the first thing that we've considered as a department is sentence variation. And Claire mentioned Alan Peake's sentences earlier, which was really nice to hear that she does that as well. And what I've created is a resource, 2-page resource for all of Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4 of what excellent sentence structures look like. And I've taken work from iSpaced, Chris Curtis has done some sentence work, Alan Peake and David Didow. And this is just simply a case of modelling and practicing these sentence stems and sentence starters, just so that pupils have exposure to these different models, essentially, so they can then apply them in their work. But again, it comes back to modelling. We need to model it to them, and then it will become second nature to them. Regarding structure as well, I wanted to think about how we get pupils to consider the content of their writing. Now, typically we teach introduction, 3 paragraphs of key ideas, and then conclusion for most of the texts in the Unit 2 and 3 papers. But then you've got that issue of key ideas, and that links you back to the problem of, oh, I don't know what to write. And you know, you've got to be more specific. And this was inspired by a Twitter thread that I found, and I have credited Miss G. Johnston up here as well. When completing a writing task, which this will work for exposition or unit 3, now we ask our pupils to consider a range of perspectives. And I actually used this whilst doing the Oracy group discussion a few weeks ago, whilst providing them with things to discuss within the discussion. I wanted them to think about the environmental impact, the locality, is there any local issues, any personal issues? So that worked really well with Oracy. And we haven't yet applied it to writing because we've been doing Oracy, but we will now after half term. And I just think it's such a good idea. And again, this could just be me. All of you might have been doing this for years, and this is again just a me problem. But this will allow pupils to consider a range of perspectives in their writing. So they might have a paragraph on economic issues, a paragraph on health and well-being issues. And if you think about it in context, you've got a task there. Teenagers spend too much time on the gadgets, not enough time sleeping. Write a lively article. Okay, so well, we can look at this as a societal measure. We can look at this in a health and well-being issue. The next paragraph could look at the impact it would have on your education. You might then have a paragraph about your personal response to this, and then the technological impacts as well. So you can see how it fits into that question. And I've got another example there. Young people are selfish. They should be made to volunteer to help others. Write an essay. Well, you could look at the economic issues of volunteering, the morality behind helping others, the impact it will have on your education and how it will improve you as a learner. So you can see how that might structure the paragraphs there as well. So just a few ideas there that we've started to look at with regards to improving Key Stage 4 outcomes in writing. And I wondered if there was any examples of good practice that any of you might have to share, because, you know, without each other sharing good examples, we're kind of stuck in a rut sometimes, aren't we? So this now might be a chance for you to share any good practice, essentially. And that's the end of that. Thank you, Leanne.